And the thing that actually bothered me the most when I first started driving this is the 2026 Mazda CX-70 Turbo Premium Plus. This one as spec is $49,500 before destination. And I think this might actually be one of the more popular trim levels that people go for. I'll explain why. But the CX-70, as a lot of you guys know, is essentially the same thing as the CX-90, just without the third row of seats. And for the first time ever, we have a longitudinal inline-6 that's turbocharged in the CX-70 platform, or in any real Mazda platform, that's powering the rear wheels. That is actually all-wheel drive, but is a rear wheel based architecture, which actually has several unique advantages. Now, in terms of the three main powertrains, you have the Turbo at $40,000, the Turbo S at $52,000, and the PHEV, which is plug-in hybrid with an inline-4 at $54,000. The PHEV is the heaviest at around 5,300 pounds, and the Turbo and the Turbo S are quite a bit lighter, around 4,800 pounds. It's a 500-pound weight saving. So I think this might be the actual enthusiast choice. But here's the thing. Now, as we drive the CX-70, I'm going to be comparing it to the CX-50 and also some of the BMW X5, X7 offerings to really understand where this fits in the lineup, the price point, the driving dynamics, and so on. Now, we're powered by Mazda's new 3.3-liter inline-6 turbocharged engine, making 280 horsepower, 332 pound-feet of torque, with a 6,500 RPM redline, with a 48-volt mild hybrid. That's made it to an 8-speed automatic transmission. This is not a torque converter, though. This is actually a wet multi-plate clutch with planetary gears, so you don't have that fluid slip from a torque converter. We'll cover why that's very relevant shortly. That 48-volt motor sits between the engine and the transmission. So again, you need to have some clutch slip to actually get started. You don't just have that fluid coupling, that torque multiplication effect that you have with a fluid-based torque converter. This is an all-wheel drive system, which is of course rear biased, but it has an open diff with brake-based torque vectoring. It has a 5,000 pound towing capacity, the most of any Mazda. We also have double wishbone in the front and multi-link in the rear, which is a first for any Mazda SUV, and of course electric power steering. Now this one is the top trim of the Turbo. So what you get is, of course, the HUD, the heated and ventilated seats, the heated steering wheel, a larger infotainment, 360 cam, Napa leather, some driving assist like traffic jam assist and other advanced features, power liftgate, better materials, Bose premium audio, and 21-inch wheels versus the standard 19-inch wheels, which is going to reduce the amount of tire sidewall, which is going to impact the driving quality, but also the responsiveness as you give it some steering input. And look at how large this is. This has a 122-inch wheelbase, which is actually identical to the BMW X7. But usually people are comparing this to the X5 because this is a two-row SUV and the X5 is the two-row SUV. The CX-90, which is the same identical platform just with a third row of seats, is, I guess, the BMW X7 competitor, but again, it's the same thing just with or without a third row of seats. Overall, styling-wise, we have a very bulb. It's almost like a prominent brow ridge, like almost like a Neanderthal, but you know, it's very distinct over here. I think it still looks quite sharp. They made this vehicle look so much more expensive than it actually is. I mean, when you see it in the metal and it has this street presence, it feels like a much more premium and expensive car than what it actually is. I think they really knocked it out of the park, as Mazda has been doing with their styling recently. And getting into the interior, I love the white on red. I think it works quite well, especially when you have these premium materials. And I absolutely adore this interior. It's Mazda taking their already very premium interior design and that Japanese aesthetic and philosophy and just elevating it up. I will say, however, that there are some design choices that don't really make the most use of this space. First of all, this super wide transmission tunnel, it actually looks and feels very premium, and you have this nice soft leather here so for when your knee touches it. Pardon my sunscreen there, but when your knee touches it, you know, it's not cutting into your legs like in my CX-50 or most other less premium vehicles. But it's just so incredibly wide. But Mazda, the engineers will tell you that the reason they didn't go with a torque converter and they went with this custom built in-house multi-plate wet clutch, in part is because they wanted to have a much more slender profile that didn't actually intrude so much into the cabin, yet we still have so much of a massive center tunnel. And you can choose different materials here. I would actually probably choose like some kind of wood grain, I think, rather than this pattern. But it's very wide. It just feels a little bit wasteful. at least the wireless phone charger, from my experience, if I'm not hustling the car, the phone does actually stay in place and actually charges, which hasn't always been the case with my CX-50. In fact, the CX-50, I've just given up on the phone charger, even though they've replaced it and tried to fix it at the dealership. Also, this, you know, this center compartment, you would imagine is going to be really deep. No, it's like, it's, you know, just a finger length deep, which is, again, feels highly wasteful. But beyond that, if you can get past the suboptimal use of storage space, it does feel like a very premium cabin. I love that we have the physical controls here. I like the cliff, and I wish that we actually had maybe a longer cliff. I actually very much enjoy what they did in the CX-50 as an example, but I think this still looks excellent. And rather than a dial for your temperature, you just have these buttons. But physical HVAC controls, thank you Mazda, and a very aesthetic steering wheel. And the airbag here also just, it feels very intentional with the design. The gauge cluster itself, very high quality screen, way better than in my CX-50. That CX-50 looks low res, not great contrast. This looks incredible, very sharp, very good contrast. And this, however, even standing here, you can see some pixelation. Now, maybe on camera, maybe not so much, and you'll probably get used to it, but it feels like they have some, there is some aliasing here. They have some, you know, downsampling, upsizing, etc. that's going on here to make it fit on the screen. And as a result, you lose some of the resolution and some details, which even here from where I will normally drive the car, I can see the rougher edges. Some people are going to mind this, some people not so much. But everything you touch just feels excellent. Also, the actual gear shift here, you have to go sideways and then down. And I was told by the dealership that a lot of people would put this into park like this. They would think they're in park and then get out of the car, and the car reverses and they actually damage the vehicle. So, interesting design choice. The 360 cam, though, is also very high resolution. I like this. It's almost like a more three-dimensional simulation versus just the top-down like I have in the CX-50, but good quality to the cameras as well, and you have your sensors too. And as soon as you get behind the wheel and start moving, you instantly can tell from the inputs, this is a Mazda vehicle. Modern Mazdas, they have that zoom, that Jinba Itai, the horse and rider as one, that very much focus on making sure the driving experience is sporty, is giving you some feedback, is very well calibrated. And for those who don't know, I actually own a 2023 CX-50 Turbo Premium Plus, as well as a 2024 ND3 Miata Club. So I love what Mazda is doing. And you feel that same DNA here in the CX-70. So what do I mean by that? The steering has a nice heft to it. It is very good, consistent weighting, quite sharp for an SUV, and not overly darty. Nice amount of feedback as well in terms of road texture. It just feels excellent in your hands. It feels more luxury than premium. If I could just summarize the inputs, they are very natural, directionally more sporty, but you don't have to think about them. It doesn't have, you know, terribly sharp steering ratio. The one thing that I will say I did have to think about when I first got behind the wheel, now that I've been driving this for a week, I'm used to it, but the brake pedal can actually feel a little bit touchy, where at the very beginning you don't get as much grab and then it starts biting in a more logarithmic way rather than just fully linear. But now that I'm used to it, not bothering me at all. So while the inputs all feel good, a few things will stand out to you. The steering ratio is quite slow, meaning I have to give a lot of steering input to get the car to change direction. The weighting of the steering, the accuracy of the steering, the feedback of the steering is all quite strong. Maybe not as good as my CX-50 Turbo Premium Plus in terms of the actual steering feedback, but I would be very happy with this in my daily driver. It is fun, communicative without being fatiguing. But I don't know why I need to give so much input just to get this thing moving. It has a slower steering ratio by about maybe 10 to 20% versus my CX-50. And because this car is so much larger and longer, the wheelbase here is 122 inches versus 111 in the CX-50, it makes it feel larger and more lumbrous as a result. The other thing, again, while the paddles themselves, they have that nice crisp feeling, just like in the same as my CX-50, feels very similar. They feel very modern, crisp actuation, etc. The transmission actually draws a lot of attention to itself. And what I mean by that is if you start doing manual paddles, you can feel each and every shift. It's not that smooth. Part of the thing with the torque converter is that you have a little bit of that give, a little bit of that absorption of shocks and of the imperfections, the NVH in the drivetrain. But when you have a clutch and it's fully locked in and fully engaged and it's not slipping, right, then you don't have that absorption. So you feel a little bit of that jerkiness, that harshness, especially from a stop here. As you get going, there can sometimes be some clunkiness, some jerks. And it is an 8-speed automatic transmission, but because of the way that this wet clutch works, they don't actually, they don't spread out all the gears in the way that you may think of an 8-speed versus the traditional 6-speed, torque converter in most other Mazdas. What they did is they actually grouped together gears 1 through 3 quite closely because, again, of this clutch-based system with slip versus a torque converter, which has the torque multiplication effect and has a bit of a smoother creep that's automatic. With this Mazda, they have to program that creep to have some slip when you let go of the brake, so that it's slowly pulling you forward and behaving in the way that you would expect from an automatic vehicle, right? You have to do this with even like a DCT, you'd have to do the same thing. But in this application, in an SUV, I think that you lose out on some of that refinement, that ease. If you look at the Germans, right, the BMWs, the Audis, those SUVs that are equivalent to this all use automatic torque converter transmissions. They don't have this, this fancy system, which I understand why they want to do it. They want to have better efficiency. They want to have that directness when you're actually fully locked in and you can have that sportiness. But the added jerkiness to the transmission is not ideal. And then also in terms of the gear ratios, you're not getting that much of a benefit because, again, the first 3 gears are really clumped together. And sure, 8th gear is longer than what 6th gear would have been, but not by very much. So that's the transmission. But if I'm being honest with you, the biggest thing that bothered me wasn't that. In fact, I actually like this new powertrain because you get a little bit of that inline-6 smoothness, this more gradual wave of torque, the nice, not the most sonorous inline-6, not the smoothest inline-6, there's no BMW inline-6 as an example, but this is definitely a step up versus the inline-4 that's been used across Mazda's lineup. And the thing that actually bothered me the most when I first started driving this is the ride quality and the head toss, how much your head is actually moving laterally as you go over bumps. Because this car is substantially larger, almost 1,000 pounds heavier than my CX-50, and also quite a bit taller. So if you imagine this is the ground and the car's on top, if you have movement side to side and you're sitting higher up, you actually move more versus a low down car here, you don't move as much laterally, right? You move a lot more up here in a taller vehicle. What that means is that because they tuned this for that Mazda Zoom and it's more stiffly sprung, you get a lot of lateral head toss, and it was actually making me feel, maybe not nauseous, but it was just really grating on me. And eventually I got used to it after a few days. I just learned to kind of, calibrate. I just learned to, tap into my inner chicken. Those chickens just kind of keep their head stable like a gimbal. I had to be a chicken driving this car, just keep my head from going side by side. And that just feels unnecessary. And I think when people first start driving this car, that's going to bother them as well. Now, it is something that I'm used to now after driving it for a week. And I'm actually finding myself liking the car more than when I first got into it. But I think that will be off-putting to many prospective owners, because most people, they go and test drive this for 20 minutes. They don't spend a full week with the car. The other thing is that theoretically this should have a much better ride quality than the CX-50, right? Because the CX-50 is torsion beam in the rear, this is multi-link in the rear, and the CX-50 is also strut front suspension, whereas this is double wishbone. And double wishbone is not load bearing in the same way that McPherson strut is. You don't have that side friction to overcome when you have travel, so you should have less harshness on the initial impact. In theory, this is true, but because this is a heavier, taller vehicle, higher center of gravity, they needed to really stiffen things up in order to get the body control that they wanted. And as a result, you have still a significant amount of harshness to the ride. more so than you would expect for a vehicle of this class. Now, when you drive this back-to-back with the CX-50, you will notice the sophistication of the suspension over the CX-50, absolutely. And I've driven actually both of them back-to-back on the same roads. The torsion beam in the rear is more of the compromise in the CX-50, but even, you know, the suspension in the front, McPherson strut versus double wishbone, that dynamic camber change as you corner hard, and you know, less friction on that initial impact. But that being said, because this is so stiff, you do get more harshness, and it's hard to describe. Like in the CX-50, you can feel still some of that crashiness, some of that, you know, lack of sophistication and tuning through the suspension. But because the car is lighter, because it's lower center of gravity, even though you feel it, it's oftentimes not quite as jarring and as harsh as what you feel in the CX-70, if that makes sense. Now, that being said, I still do very much love this car for what it is, but I think it's going to be a vehicle where you have to wait for the mid-cycle refresh, and they're going to dial things out, right? They're going to further refine the drivetrain so you don't have this strange behavior as you start and stop. You know, are probably going to reduce some of the vibrations, which again, I think part of that is just due to having a clutch-based system rather than torque converter, not having that fluid damping. So, but you know, getting some of those vibrations through the drivetrain at various RPMs, it's a little bit more than what you'd expect from a BMW. And I think as Mazda refines these, maybe they'll choose to actually increase the steering ratio, make it a little bit faster, because right now it just makes the car feel larger and heavier than it is. And I understand why they want to have, you know, greater mid-corner modulation, higher resolution, but I think this is just a little bit excessive. They've gone too far in the direction of making things slower at the front end. It's not necessary. But the biggest issue I have with the CX-70 is really just the size. Because again, the X7 has an identical 122-inch wheelbase as the CX-70 and the CX-90. And the BMW X3 is 113 inches, the CX-50 is 111 inches, so those are clearly competitors. And the BMW X5 is in the middle. You know, bigger than the CX-50, smaller than the CX-70. And I really wish that they gave us this platform, the rear-wheel drive based architecture, which gives you the greater towing capacity, 5,000 pounds, which, you know, is actually quite important to some of us. You know, I want to be able to tow my vehicle to the track, things like that. But if it could be done in a smaller platform, that would be so welcome, because then you're getting the benefits of the rear-wheel drive architecture. You're not gonna have to pay as much of a penalty for the added heft and weight and higher center of gravity. You know, give me a CX-50 that's maybe just a little bit larger with the straight six rear-wheel drive based all-wheel drive system. I would absolutely love that, especially if you still retained the, you know, of course with the same platform, you're gonna have the double wishbone front, multi-link rear. Like it would be in my garage the next day. And again, I love what Mazda is doing. I am being a bit critical in this video because I want you guys to understand what you're getting into if you do choose to buy this vehicle. It is not a soul-sucking NPC mobile, which is why I love Mazda. Driving my CX-50, my Mazda Miata, the CX-70, none of them feel boring. And you can hustle this thing around, and because it is more stiffly sprung, more sporty, it keeps up with you as an SUV, it really does. But when you're driving around town and you're on imperfect roads and, you know, you're starting and stopping, these imperfections can, you know, they can grate on you, and possibly for your passengers as well. But my friends, let me know what you think of the Mazda CX-70. Big thanks to Mazda USA for letting me test out the vehicle over the last week and give you my unfiltered thoughts. Let me know what you think with a comment down below. Much love, my friends, and I'll see you all in that next one.